fabulous Vanita Blackburn is the author of Black Jesus and Other Superheroes and How to Wrestle a Girl. Her work has appeared in The New Yorker, Harper's, McSweeney's, and the Paris Review, amongst others. She's received a PEN America Literary Prize in fiction. Her debut novel, Dead in Long Beach, California, is going to be published in January of this year. That is out now. So, in fact, it's somewhere in these cases, but you'll have to look for it when we put everything back. So, and then moving along, we have Jennifer S. Cheng, who's the author of Moon Letters, Maps, and Poems, winner of the Tarpaulin Sky Book Prize for poetry, lyric essays, and image. Lit Hub, and many other publications, the former book editor at the San Francisco Chronicle. He's going to be in conversation with Rita. I want to send a big shout out to Sarah Delosier at Viking for her efforts in publicizing this book. And thank you to all of you for being here tonight. So here we go.
Hello, I guess I'll start my little talk. Hello, is that good? Okay, so yes, I am Vanita Blackburn. I'm the one out of that list. So Rita and I, we really do share a lot of, I don't know, just outlooks on the world, on girlhood, on sort of sports and femininity and the judgment that you get when you don't match certain things that the world perceives is what you should be. But I'm going to read from a very brief section. I'm trying to figure out how to transition this into it because it's a very angry section. And anger is usually a mask for everything else, right? For sadness, for fear, for all of the more challenging feelings that we aren't always culturally, prone to express. So I'm going to read this one, and it's from my novel, Dead in Long Beach, California. And I'll give you the premise just to, run it down. But it's very short, so I can talk, so it's okay. So it's about a woman. She discovers her brother dead from suicide. And, warning, take care of yourself if this is going to be a hard topic, but it's very briefly mentioned. But instead of, I don't know, handling it well, which who would, she opts for delay. So she has his phone and decides to impersonate him as long as possible for a week to give herself time. And while she does this, an entirely different voice takes over the narrative. So she's kind of dissociating and has to surrender herself to this outside narrative, which it was originally titled lesbian assassins at the end of the world, but I had to bring it back down to the core of the story, which was very, very much set in Southern California. And I'm going to read this section. This is one of the brief sections in the book where the character herself gets to speak in her natural voice and not this kind of hive mind that sort of takes over and has this ability to comfort her through knowing everything. But here is just Coral, just the main character after she's found her brother and she's gone through all of the mess of the day, and she's really, really angry. Okay. Coral opened her brother's contacts list and scrolled through the names. The scroll was quick, barely 30 people. How is that? She said out loud. She paced the small, dark room, speaking to the walls and furniture. Is that normal? Is this how men are? How do you have no friends? Is this a plumber? You haven't had a house in 15 years. Why do you still have that plumber in your phone? You don't know any of our aunts' numbers even. They always call me and ask how you are. And now what? I don't care what they think. One more fucking thing, I swear. I had to do it all by myself before, too. Pay for everything when I was barely out of college. Debt for a funeral before I even knew people charged for all those goddamn flowers. More dead shit. It never ends for me. And sometimes it gets to be about me, okay? I'm a person. I'm not some kind gay nun with a credit card. I have shit to do. Now I have to be the middleman in the family because you never talk to anybody. Stupid. You didn't make a single fucking friend worth putting in your goddamn phone all this fucking time. Who does that? Men are always drying up and dying at 50 because they don't know how to socialize. You all just think about whatever the fuck you think about, and that's it. You work and that's it. You get a wife once or twice and that's it. You don't go to the doctor. You don't exercise. You eat steaks like beef is supposed to save your soul or grow your dicks. Stupid. Your brains aren't bigger. Your skulls are just thicker. And I have to do every fucking leftover thing for you for the rest of my life. Okay, I'm going to stop there. And we'll just roll with it.
Hi, I'm so thrilled to be here celebrating Rita. I just wanted to say that she's one of my favorite writers and would be so even if I didn't know her personally. I just, the first time I heard Rita read, I wanted to crawl into her language and just drown there. Okay, so I'm just gonna read, I think, three uh poems. These are not in any of my books. These are older poems that I just kind of published in journals and then didn't do anything with. They're each titled Anthropology of the Body. Anthropology of the Body 1.1. If temperature were a way to know the world, then waning heat, half heat, these would be names for the body in progress, and not merely words for the time of day. If texture were our primary experience, we might have ways of calling ourselves to others. I would know the angular purpose of an object, its porous surface, and the force that perforates us together. This is how we shape the world around us. We contour our skin against an edge we are touching. We yield our bodies to the imprint of another, and it yields something back. When we were children, we thought our bodies were for exploring things of the earth, soil, water, hard surfaces. When we were children, we thought our skin was a tool for knowledge. We spent hours bathing in the tub, in the park, sinking our fingers into pile of leaves, buckets of sand. We did not know the impermeability of certain surfaces, how certain boundaries are set like stone. Anthropology of the Body 1.2. Our body is a metaphor for something unknown. I hold a cup of ice in my hands, winter intertwining fingers. Suddenly, you are a lover I must set aside, a body too disparate from my own. A woman holds sugar on the tip of her tongue, and her child calls her sweet. We are reckless with our knowledge. I step into the shower, pour cold water all over my limbs. I pinch my skin to emulate a shiver. If Freud was right and the mind can absorb the structures of the body, then I might take your hand to these scabs, say boundaries, walls, say if you could divide into a wrinkle. Anthropology of the Body 2.1. Having spent months underwater, an infant knows something of echolocation. I was not ready for this much intimacy, so I planted a garden of tomato seeds in the corner where the light did not yet reach. I called a person on the telephone and held the mouthpiece to the grain of the floor. In between, the sky wombed a storm, and my mouth was all shadow. In between, I did not know how to locate myself. Sensitive, subterranean, a nod, a diagnosis. A child runs into the ocean, and I cover my ears. The body knows when something large has shifted. It accumulates loss in hidden places, joints, crevices between bone, until suddenly recognition hits and manifests itself. The body parallel to the earth, convulsing like a wave. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you all hear me okay? Hi, Rita. Isn't Rita amazing? Look at her. I feel lucky for a lot of reasons. One, to have Rita as a friend and have her in my life. Two, that this book is finally officially out in the world. There should be more serious, brilliant literature about women in sports. So I think this will inspire more. And third, I have had the rare privilege of actually competing against Rita on the in a very high stakes game of basketball on the streets of Oakland in a literary league, which I was going to say no one was good, but I see a few people here from the league. So I was actually going to say only Rita and I were halfway decent. And it was kind of an amazing reading experience, reading your book and also having this moment of us playing each other. And I will just say that Rita is as fierce on the court in her kicks as she is on the page. So yes, it really deepened my reading, and appreciate you, Rita. So I'm just going to read the beginning of a new project that I'm working on. This came about because I was rereading a lot of Dante's The Divine Comedy, and I kept thinking that I wanted to hear this story from a woman. Midway in the journey of my life, I found myself in a dark wood, confessing a secret to a stranger from Human Resources. I wasn't sure how I'd gotten there. The morning had begun with the laundry and the children, my husband upstairs, taking an urgent work call. Texts were appearing from my boss, and I had just finished sorting the whites. I picked up the pile with one hand, my youngest with the other, and limped down the hall, my eldest attached to my leg. I put the shirts and sheets in each of their respective drawers, the darks on a cold cycle as we shuffled through the living room, which held all the bookshelves, which held what I used to consider treasures to be saved first in a fire. Now I had taken to calling the room the Museum of Solipsism, and I would let it all burn if it came to that. I had been asking myself in rare pockets of thought whether a writer's life was useful to society at large. A life devoted to the expression of two personal urges. Though of course there were those I envied in the museum too, whether they were useful to anyone or not. The thought was interrupted by the children's cries and another buzzed from my phone. I limped to my bedroom, dust and hair collecting along my son's pants. Hallway's clean now, I mused, and noticed that in moving the laundry basket from the corner, a pile of clothing had grown in its place, sprouting from the floor. I wasn't sure how it was possible, given that everyone had been dressed since I'd started the loads. On the floor next to the pile was one of the 10 personal copies I'd received of my own book many years before, with the title page sucked on and partially torn out, clearly by my youngest. It was almost 2 on the mark, the children eating the book, I thought. That was the last thing I remembered. When I came to, I was in my home office chair, staring at my reflection on Zoom. The bags under my eyes were overstuffed, either because of the angle or the light, or simply because the view was honest. I looked down. I had been dressed and clean and the children sent to school, but I had no recollection of how that had been achieved. I was clearly waiting for someone on Zoom. Who? And toggled to my calendar, seeing a name I didn't recognize. I returned to my reflection. My background was set to a dark, hellish forest. Why had I virtually placed myself here? It was April, I remembered, Save the Earth Day. The senior directors had been asked to use one of the pictures provided by the company to show digital solidarity. Had I chosen Eerie Forest background by mistake instead of Protect the Rainforest background, and then lost in the thicket of meetings, forgotten to change it? Though why had Eerie Forest even been an option, I wondered. Perhaps to show what would happen to things if we didn't remember to save them. I surveyed the landscape around my shoulders and head. The branches were black and wiry. Mist gave the scene an ominous glow. In the darkness, it was hard to tell if the site was moist or dried up. I tried to imagine the sounds that might accompany a person while walking through it, sounds that usually marked an eerie forest. Snapped branches, the cries of hidden living things. But the house was so quiet with the children gone and my husband deep in his work that my attention turned to that. It had been a while since I'd heard such deep quiet. Some time might have passed. Then without warning, the forest shrunk in half and a woman's face appeared. Mercy, I thought, who sent you? I wasn't used to seeing older people on screen. The face before me was plain, pale, sour, like one of my old Catholic school teachers. Though she couldn't have been more than 10 or 15 years older than I was. Mostly in this world, I dealt with men, a lot of them younger, most of them arrogant, the rest of them brooding over not being organically more arrogant. I had sadly vacillated between attraction to these two types of men my whole life. Those who took what they wanted without apology, and those who were kinder while secretly wishing to be otherwise. Thank you.
Oh my gosh. Thank you all so much for coming. I'm so grateful to you all for being here. I'm extremely grateful to Theresa, Vanita, Jennifer, and Ashley for agreeing to my harebrained maximalist scheme of all reading with me and performing with me. I think of my work and this novel really as an exercise in world building, and the texture of each of these artists and writer's language is just such an incredible experience in a whole full other world built. And I'm really grateful to be in chorus with them tonight. I'm incredibly grateful to Oscar Villalone for being in conversation with me after I briefly read from the book. Oscar published an excerpt of this book, the excerpt that I'm going to read from in 2019. This book very much exists in large part because of Oscar and his support of my work and his support of this book and this project. Huge gratitude to Shanna for making just the world's best cocktail. Thank you, Shanna, for making the knockout. Woo! Thank you to Peter for being such an amazing supporter of my work, for hosting this event, hosting my first book release in 2018. And I also, there's so many, I think like 80% of my acknowledgements page is physically here with me. Especially want to shout out Jenna Garrett, incredible photographer, who gifted not only gifted my book not only with this image, which was taken in my living room in the Inner Sunset, but also I believe in the works 8 other international editions, which are all using different photographs from Jenna's shoot, which is amazing. And also I want to thank all of my family here, but especially my grandmother, Barbara Lombardi, who is a native not only of San Francisco, but of this neighborhood. She knows every business owner on this block. She is amazing. Talk to her after. Okay. I'm going to read for you just the first 10 pages of this book. It's going to take maybe like 10 minutes. So it's going to be a little bit longer than the readings you've been hearing. As you may know, this is a book about a youth women's boxing tournament in Reno, and the really strange way that the playing of games has the ability to form a collective memory. Andy Taylor is pumping her hands together, hitting her own flat stomach, thinking not of her mother sitting at home with her little brother, not of her car, which barely got her here, not of her summer job, her lifeguarding at the overcrowded community pool, not of the 4-year-old she watched die, the 4-year-old she practically killed in his blue cheeks. They shouldn't give teenagers the job of saving children. It doesn't matter how many CPR classes you've taken. She killed the boy with her wandering eyes. His swimsuit had small red trucks on it. He looked like he was made out of plastic. The feel of his thigh when she pulled him from the bottom of the pool, already dead, and the way it was so easy to grip because it was so small. She's not thinking about it. She's looking at the skylight and the light it's letting in this shithole gym, and she's thinking about the things she always does wrong when she fights, her lazy left guard, the way her left hand slips away and doesn't protect her face if she's not thinking about it. She's also thinking about the way Artemis Victor will get her. If Andy Taylor doesn't think about this fight will be over in a matter of seconds. Andy Taylor needs to think about her spacing and her stomach. Andy Taylor needs to think about her stance. They're still sitting and looking at each other meanly. They know each other but have never fought before. When you join the Women's Youth Boxing League, this facade of a sports association makes you pay $200, and then you get a free subscription to their magazine, which profiles its members, young girl boxers, one by one. So you see who's out there, even if they are across the country, and you get a good sense of who you're up against, and you know who they've fought and who they are going to fight and what their favorite hobby is, because God only knows what kind of a journalist writes this excuse for a magazine, but whoever it is seems to think it is valuable profile information and that it should be included in every athlete profile, because in every issue there it is: name, hometown, favorite color, hobby, wins and losses, photo of the girl in gloves. The photo is a wild card because some girls choose to take it in their gym clothes, while others choose to take it in halter tops, their hair down, their heads tilted, their gloves resting on their hips. Andy Taylor would know Artemis Victor anywhere because Artemis Victor is the youngest of 3 Victor sisters, a family of boxers whose parents come to every single one of Artemis's matches with shirts that say Victor, which is, of course, ridiculous. The proclamation of their daughters winning records on their chests. Everyone knows the Victor sisters and what they've won and what they've lost, and the judges treat Artemis's family like old friends, which in boxing is especially infuriating because the gray area of a call is often so present, and if you know a judge has a special relationship with the participants, you can't help thinking, I'm being slighted. This is the end of me. If only I had parents willing to befriend my coaches. If only I had parents who could get off work, who didn't work, who could come see me win. Mr. and Mrs. Victor sit in folding chairs next to the ring. There are barely over 24 other onlookers, judges, other girl fighters, a journalist from the local paper, a journalist from the Women's Youth Boxing Association magazine, parents, a grandmother, coaches, and Bob, the owner of this gym. Bob is also a coach, but as a rule doesn't coach women. He has no particular fighter he'd like to see win. His gym was just the right location for the tournament to take place in. All the coaches are men, and all the coaches own gyms, and all the coaches collect fees from the girls to, in part, pay the Women's Youth Boxing Association, who, in turn, pays the coaches for hosting regionals at their gyms. Some of the coaches were amateur boxers, but many of them have never competed at the level that these girls are fighting in. The girls' coaches travel to the tournament to get their checks from the association. In between rounds, Artemis's and Andy's coaches do speak to them, but the coaches speak only in cliches and useless information. Everything the coaches have taught the girls is in the past. The language of the coaches inside Bob's boxing palace is like the sound of the loud overhead fan. Artemis and Andy wish they could fight with less sound pollution. Every sound other than the smack of a hit is only a distraction. Artemis Victor is rolling her shoulders. She's looking at Andy Taylor and thinking, you are ugly. I am prettier than you, and I'm going to beat you too. Artemis sizes up other women physically everywhere. I am the prettiest woman in this room, she thinks. There's one woman over there who may be prettier if you like girls who look like drug addicts. There are men who like girls who look like drug addicts. When Artemis Victor thinks of herself in the future, she thinks of herself as wildly successful in a big house, maybe in Miami, not a drug addict. Artemis Victor has a teddy bear that has a doll shirt that says Victor. That's my girl, yells Mrs. Victor. Artemis Victor always thinks she's going to win. It's not a bad habit to get in. If one is capable of throwing self-doubt out the window, this power can be beneficial to deploy. Artemis Victor hates her oldest sister. Her oldest sister won the Daughters of America Cup 4 years ago. Her oldest sister won the Daughters of America 4 years ago. Her middle sister got silver. Even if Artemis wins the whole thing, wins the whole tournament, and becomes the best in the country, the best woman under 18 in the United States at boxing, she'll still be second best to her oldest sister, Star Victor, because Star became the best in the country before her and is now married with a husband and a child and well on her way to owning a house, if not being rich. Artemis Victor has no idea what it takes to own a house, but she knows what it takes to beat other people, which is what owning property seems like. Beating other people at owning a piece of earth and making that piece of earth yours, not to be shared with other people, because the owning of the property is a product of your victory over other humans, as in, you won more dollars than them, so now this slice of land is yours for keeps. It's not that Artemis Victor is stupid. She'd make an excellent banker, though she'll become a wine distributor. It's just that her values are very narrow. She has an insanely good eye for reading people, for knowing what they are thinking under the words they are speaking, for watching how people hold themselves when they talk to you, whether or not they are interested in you. She knows which of her high school teachers to feel bad for, the ones whose eyes dart around, looking for someone to listen to them. She knows the right way to say a thing to make people think she is interested in hearing them speak. Artemis Victor is also a vegan. She genuinely feels bad for animals. This is part of her profile in the Women's Youth Boxing Association magazine, the WYBA. Artemis Victor loves animals. She watched a documentary on the abuse of whales in theme parks and also thinks they should be let free. The referee is in the middle of the ring and is saying things to the girls about rules that they already know and have heard 100 times before. They nod their heads and get up off their stools and begin to bounce up and down. Andy is bouncing much more than Artemis. Artemis paces forward, steady. They're both wearing silk shorts and sports bras and tank tops. The elastic on their waistbands makes dents in their skin that will last for hours after they take their shorts off. A week ago, Andy came home and took off her shorts and looked at the red ring of gullies the shorts had left on her stomach. She fingered the indentations with her hands. When the marks disappeared an hour later, she was sad not to have them. They seemed like evidence of the work she'd done. She wished she had a black eye from a winning fight to wear around, to show people she was fighting, to show people her body was doing something that was hard. Andy's knee is out too far, and Artemis moves in to force Andy to retract it back under her hips. These are the size up seconds, the moments a fighter has to see if and where their opponent has weaknesses. If Artemis has a weakness, it is the fact that she is a legacy. Her sister's wins hang over her. She is reminded of them constantly. This is the tournament where she can be as good as her eldest sister or the worst boxer in their family. The type of legacy that is the Victor family is rarer in boxing than other kinds of sports, but not unheard of. Youth women's boxing is a world small enough that the Victors could conquer it. Andy Taylor's knee is still not in the right place. Artemis lifts her lip up to her nose to show her red, mouthguard covered teeth. Artemis's biceps are balls of muscle. She can hit things harder than most people can throw a ball. Her back muscles are arched in two small hills on either side of her neck. Artemis begins to see a weakness in the way Andy moves, where Artemis thinks she can place a hit. Artemis thinks she can touch Andy Taylor. Just as Artemis thinks this, Andy hits the left side of Artemis Victor's ribs. It's a blow that the judges call a hit immediately. The score is yelled loud enough so everyone can hear it. This is a point-hitting game after all. That's why they wear padded headgear that circles their ears and cheeks and foreheads and buckles under their chins. This is target practice. Andy had seen a tunnel of vacancy between her right fist and Artemis's left rib cage. It had looked illuminated, like it was just begging to be filled with Andy's fist. Andy had put her hand in the hole to Artemis's body, that tunnel of vacancy, and then was filling the hole again and again until the referee got between them. The referee had checked the inside of Andy's gloves before he taped them on her wrists. He was checking to see if she had put lead in them. They always do this before the match. It's part of the rules of the association. Andy loves when the referees reach in her gloves. She likes watching their hands go into a hole where her hands are about to go. The fact that they check every time makes Andy feel like she's capable of murder. She loves having an adult confirm that her fist could be a weapon. Maybe she could put a rock in there. Maybe she is capable of killing the girl she is fighting. Every time the referees look in her gloves, it is like they are saying, "You are capable of killing," which feels good to Andy. Most people in her life don't seem to believe she's capable of anything, let alone killing someone with purpose. And with the wandering eyes murder of the little boy, she wonders, is she also capable of killing someone with her fists? The boy with the red truck shorts, Andy wasn't thinking about him, was not even the worst thing that had happened to Andy or the first dead body she had seen, but it was the smallest. The other dead body had been her father's. The smallness of the dead boy had seemed especially disgusting. The day had been so clear and dry. She hadn't cried. She vomited after it was clear that the red truck kid was not going to come back to life. The vomiting made Andy feel like she was herself a small child. She was surprised by her body's visceral repulsion to the dead red truck kid. It was the image of his small, corn dog-sized thigh that made her vomit. Andy hit Artemis again, this time on Artemis's shoulder. How long could she get away with hitting Artemis Victor? I'll stop there.
All right. Oh, is this on? Rita, that was so wonderful. That was so lovely. I can only ruin it at this point. First of all, congratulations on the book. It's tremendous. It's
Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely wonderful. And second, thank you, City Lights, for having this event. This is fantastic. This crowd is wonderful. I see everybody here. I think I recognize a lot of faces. I guess deadlines are going to be shot. I don't see, no one's in the office. But that's fine. Thank you all for coming out. And thank you too for the little te salud. I appreciated that about ZYZZYVA running the excerpt.
I mean, your edits to this section that I read, it was you were one of like the first people that had ever seen that section. And it was the first time I had considered that portion of the book, or any portion of the book, editorially. And for you to take it seriously and make it so much better was just, I'm still living in a deep bow. Thank you.
No, Rita, all credit to you, my friend. All credit to you. If I may if we could pick up the boxing analogy.
You gave me a bunch of boxing specific edits, which I really appreciated.
I'm a big boxing fan.
Incredibly useful to me.
Yeah, and but what's so incredible about your novel is if you care not a whit about boxing, it's still incredibly engrossing. In fact, I think like a couple of other classic boxing novels, or that's to say novels that are about boxing, but they're not boxing novels. I think it's right there with Fat City, Leonard Gardner's, and it's right there with FX Tools, Rope Burns, which ZYZZYVA published some of his work early on. And of course, you may know it from $1 Million Baby, the movie with Hilary Swank. That was from one of FX Tools' stories. I think it's right there.
What do you think is in the water? Like, why are these Bay Area writers published in ZYZZYVA? Like, why are we coming back to the sport?
To boxing?
Yeah, sorry, you're interviewing me.
No, it's fine. Yeah, this is your time. We can do whatever you like. That's absolutely true. I mean, I think tell you, I think briefly, there's something about boxing that, as repugnant as it can be, sometimes is absolutely compelling. It's as you show in this novel. It is two consciousnesses together trying to work things out, and there's nobody else there but you two. Nobody. There's just the two competitors. And I think what you do so brilliantly in this novel is use that setup as a point of departure for exploring psyches, for getting into, I mean, all sorts of wonderful, I mean, we have these group of girl boxers from different economic backgrounds, from different parts of the country, different heights, different sizes, and as Artemis so brutally assesses the others, different levels of conventional beauty. You find in them, and in this tin-walled, shabby, sad excuse of a boxing gym in Reno, Nevada, Bob's Boxing Palace, right? You find in there the universal, Rita. It absolutely unpacks. It's phenomenal. It's strange in the best sense and sorrowful. It is an incredible meditation on girlhood, on womanhood, and then, as if though that weren't enough, it really just examines what existence and agency might even be.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm saying you really should get the book, is what I'm saying. I'm just saying one last thing that, just on a structural level, that blew me away, was how you accordion time in and out. We go from minutes to hours to days to years, many years, all within a couple of pages. And it is executed perfectly. It is, I dare say that the prose is exquisite in its control and its intentionality. So congratulations to you, Rita. Thank you so much. This was
Thank you.
Yes, this was thrilling to read.
Thank you.
But I mean, so we're saying though before about how boxing kind of lends itself to sort of these epics, if you will. I think one of the things that I found arresting among all the different themes that you unpack in it is the idea of wanting to be seen. And I was wondering if you could talk about that a little bit, because throughout the novel, these girls keep saying or meditate upon how they want someone to see what they're doing. They want a spectator to their life, which is to say someone who's actually interested in them.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's happening in this tournament is that they are spectators to each other, that the only like true audience that each of the young girl boxers have is the person that they're directly boxing against. That is the only person that is really watching them and might have some interior access to them. There are, the coaches in the book, they're kind of like they're like adults Peanuts characters. They're kind of like wow, they like are there, but they're so peripheral. They're never given time in the book. They're never given any real focus. It's really the girls witnessing each other, and this idea of respect that comes with and the unique relationship that comes with like, you are a physical equal to me, and therefore I'm agreeing to compete against you in something. Like before you compete physically against someone in any sport, you have to agree that you are an equal on some plane, which is kind of a radical acknowledgement to be like, you are a physical equal to me. And in that way, I think that even though it is a book that is structured as a literal tournament, it's structured as a bracket, that the 8 main characters in the book, there are 8 main characters, are much more comrades than adversaries. Even though you see them face off against each other, I think of them as ultimately being in league with one another. Another way I was thinking about being seen and the structure of the book is, I don't know if any of you have ever played there are many other games in the book besides boxing. If any of you have ever played the childhood game of sardines, if yes, hide and go seek in reverse. This is how I was thinking of the book structurally, where as opposed to in a normal tournament, like people or characters get knocked out, but I was thinking of it as the girls that were getting knocked out of the tournament, like in Sardines, are all going to go hide in the same place and like become a part of some collective voice. So, and in that way, once the girls leave the tournament, they're still like witnessing each other or being together somehow. They've like become a collective. So it is about being seen. I mean, if you're boxing someone, you have to look at someone, you have to project upon them and try and figure out, what income bracket are you from? Does your mom love you? You have to like, you have to look at them and say, who are you? What matters to you? How can I narrativize this act that I'm doing with them? So you're totally right. It is about being seen.
Yeah, that to what you're saying, just expand upon just really quickly. If you watch any documentaries about any sort of boxers, about boxing in general, invariably you will always hear the same thing from every single boxer, which is that by the time you're done fighting your opponent, you will know more about them than their spouse, than their lover, than their parents. You will have a better sense of what they're about than anybody else on the planet, which is why it's no surprise that they hug each other at the end.
I'm so glad you brought this up, Oscar. I've had trouble articulating this about the unique physical intimacy that comes with the playing of a sport, which is why, Ashley, I'm particularly excited that you brought that we share that intimacy. Because in terms of like physical intimacy, like social constructs in which it's acceptable to like touch another human, there actually aren't that many. And as far as I can see, there's pretty much like 3 buckets. There's physical affection, like whether it be someone, sexual physical affection or familial physical affection, like someone who you're physically intimate with in a familial or love way. And then there's like a transactional physical intimacy, like you're getting a massage, you're getting your hair done or whatever. And then there's physical competition or physical sport or physical game playing. Dance is in this bucket as well, where there are like confines and rules. And those are kind of like the three ways in which it's socially, from what I've been able to discern, in which it's like socially acceptable to touch another human. And I was really interested in this book with the last bucket, with like entering a space where there are rules, but you are physically touching one another, and there's like mediation and expectations around that. So that makes total sense. I mean, I do think that there is an intimacy, and it's a non-sexual intimacy with competing against someone like that. It makes total sense that boxers know each other better than their spouse in that way. That resonates with me.
And you see this with the characters in the book. They take measure of themselves against the measure of their opponent, and when you talk about how they stick around, well, they stick around. There's many beautiful passages, but one in particular where it's like why would you stick around if you lost, right? Why are you going to watch the people who literally clobbered you and see if they can win this really crappy little plastic trophy, right? Well, it's because you're now bonded in some sort of strange way, and you sort of describe something where it's almost cannibalistic, where the victor, like, now I have subsumed you.
Yeah, there's this thing in the book where like the girls that have lost, like they haunt the matches that the winner goes forward with. So the memory of the previous match's body comes with the boxer forward into the next match. And that just seems true to my experience of a deep past of being a competitive youth athlete, and the way that you, like, I have these very vivid, I was like the co-captain of a Division I top 20 ranked water polo team, which was by far the most proficient I ever was athletically. And like many of the people that I were on my team and that I played against are some of the last of them. The elder statesmen are still on the Olympic team, and then many of them went and played pro in Australia and Greece, and these places that have women's professional women's water polo leagues. But I remember things about their bodies, these women that I haven't seen at this point in 15 years. And I remember things about their bodies and their weaknesses that I couldn't forget even if I tried. You really do carry your memory of these people with you. And part of it is just about spending so many earth hours with them, like that in itself has meaning. But yeah.
That, I mean, sort of circles back to that theme about being seen, because the question is, and I think your book is actually is some sort of, if remedy is perhaps too strong a word, but certainly proposes a solution by writing about it. But these wonderful things are going to go unwitnessed. That all these triumphs of these young women, they will get to a certain age, things will happen to them in life, and they will be forgotten. They'll be erased as though it never happened, and will only show up maybe later in some sports injury. Geez, Mom, why are you walking with a limp? Well, that's the bad hip. Bad hip from what? And then you did water polo. This sort of thing. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more too, because I think that's the sorrowful part of that book, about the way women are, the way their lives are segmented, and there's parts that will never surface in a way that maybe they should be surfacing.
Yeah, I mean, the sports injury thing is really interesting, and specifically with women's athletics. I think it goes a little bit beyond the bounds of sport. Like if you are and even beyond the bounds potentially of injury. I mean, with competitive athletes, oftentimes they do carry injuries within their body that stays with them after they have left their identity of being an athlete far behind. And with each sport it's different, right? With swimmers it's generally their shoulders, or baseball players it's their elbows or whatever. But I think also about really adept and accomplished musicians, the way that if you've spent thousands of hours practicing an instrument, that the way you posture yourself in every portion and every day of your life is still structured around whatever instrument you generally play, and that your body is changed by the fact of you having just spent so many hours doing anything. There is a section in the book in which the future child of one of the young, the book moves dramatically forward in terms of time, like deep future and deep past. And one of the athletes in the book, her daughter, witnesses her having trouble holding a cup of like tea because her hands have an injury from boxing. And I mean, part of that section was about the way the body is an archive and holds a memory of things once you might even forget about them. That your body like won't forget things the way your mind can. And then part of that was also about how like fundamentally each of us are just really unknowable to each other. I mean, with parents and children, it's like that a lot.
Yeah.
But even in spousal romantic relationships, the idea that the body holds a memory beyond what you can know of a person or know of a lover or know of a parent or know of your children.
And as I was saying before, I mean, part of the book deals with just agency, figuring out that you have agency if you ever figure it out. And there's a hello, mama.
This is my daughter.
Hello. Well, that's all right. That's all right. There's there's this connects to the tournament in terms of what narratives they have to tell themselves when they fail. When you don't achieve what you thought you're going to achieve, what you poured your whole life into, albeit they've only been on this planet for 17 years, but nonetheless, there's sacrifices and this sort of stuff. You get to this rinky-dink gym and you lose, right? And now it becomes the question of like, okay, well, what does that mean? This, because this gave me meaning. Now I'm robbed of that meaning. What's next?
Yeah, there's totally something that the book is asking. And I think it came out of partly out of me trying to figure out and really having these really vivid memories of being a competitive youth athlete and trying to figure out what I was doing, like what that was all about. And even though the book circles it, I don't know if I even know the answer of what was really going on. What did it mean to spend 20 hours a week playing the same, essentially, at a certain competitive point, the same 50 or 60 women nationally since I was 12 to when I was 21. And what was going on? Why were we continually meeting in these sports facilities? They're spaces that are often like malls or convention centers. They like look the same everywhere, and in that way they feel kind of like spaceships. Like you enter them and you could be 1,000 miles away from the last gym you competed in, but they still have the same architectural energy, the same lighting fixtures, and trying to figure out what that space was and what we were all doing there. And that's such a good question. I don't know if I really have an answer. I think that it is about maybe being there to witness one another. I had this really dramatic experience happen recently in the marina, where when I was pregnant with my daughter, I went to this gym in the marina, which it has a really embarrassing name, but bear with me. The name of the gym is Lotus Method, and it's a gym just for pregnant women. And it's like you're pregnant and you want to work out, but there's all this like fear around how to do it safely. And so I went to this gym, and the way they structured their class pass is you would have one group class a week, and then you would have a private session with a private trainer. And my private trainer was this woman who I had competed against in water polo. I hadn't seen her in maybe like 15 years. I'd competed against in water polo since like I I was maybe 11, and she had gone on, she played at UC Santa Barbara, and she'd gone on and played pro in Greece. And it was like, I knew so much about this person. I knew so much about her body. And it happened. I had this encounter with her after a lot of the book had been written, but it was this really dramatic, I'm sharing this long anecdote about how long those memories stay with you, and how, even though I'm not sure what me and this other woman were there doing, spending so many hours of our youth competing against one another, it felt like a good feeling, like a good, powerful feeling to meet someone and just remember that we had done all of this together. Because there's really no one else there's like very, very few people in my life who maybe my parents, but who like remember and know that part of me. So yeah, that was a powerful experience to just be like, is that what we were doing? Just witnessing each other? Is it that simple? Is that really all that was going on? Hard to tell.
Well, I would suggest it, given the vagaries of life, maybe that's enough.
Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of, you did this incredible thing. I think one of the things, thinking of the novel, is to say, for these young women who are going to look back on this and maybe see it as a failure, or as you write at one point regarding one of the fighters, that she turns every narrative of her life into self-fulfilling truth. Like, well, I guess I was meant to lose. I guess I was meant, this was supposed to happen. Was that you still at 17 drove from Tampa all the way by yourself to Reno, and got in the ring, displayed incredible courage, physical courage, discipline, and in front of these people, some of whom had no business even being witnesses to this, because there's a grift too, which you beautifully point to in the excerpt that you read, and at least in the way you capture in your pages, and it was glorious, and it was the world, it was everything right then and there. And I think maybe then that's enough. That thing was enough. Whether anything came from it is irrelevant. The fact is, you did that. That was you. That will always be a thing, and that can't possibly be a failure. That was,
This very well might be what I was trying to say. I think it is, much more articulately. I feel so bad for all the people that have been standing for so long. Yes. Should we?
I think it's here. I think we hit that hour. So it's well, Rita, again, congratulations. Thank you so much.